My ex-wife, who cheated and left our family years ago, showed up at my door with another man's child, wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. Here's some background. My ex-wife, Angela, and I met in our mid-20s when we worked at the same company. After dating for 2 years, we got married. Within 3 years, we had 2 daughters, now 9 and 7 years old. Angela wasn't happy about the second pregnancy, but she didn't end it even though I told her it was okay with me if she did because I didn't want her to go through anything she didn't want to. After our first daughter, everything was great and we were very much in love. But things changed after the second pregnancy. Angela became very moody and irritable and often picked on me or our oldest daughter. I thought it was because of the hormones and tried to accept this new version of Angela. We hoped things would get better, but they only got worse. My daughter and I learned to be very careful around her. I ended up taking care of everything, even though Angela was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. She had quit her job after our first child and took care of the house and our oldest daughter. While I worked, Angela got pregnant for the second time. We had to hire a housekeeper because she was too tired to handle the housework and take care of our kids. I agreed even though it was a bit expensive for us, as I wasn't earning enough at the time. I didn't want to make things harder for Angela, especially while she was pregnant. I thought she would go back to taking care of the house and kids after our second daughter was born. To be clear, I wasn't one of those husbands who did nothing around the house. I helped out as much as I could even though I was exhausted from work. After our younger daughter was born, I expected Angela would need a few months to recover, but then things would go back to normal. However, several months went by and she still didn't change. Angela stayed just as cranky and irritable and refused to do any housework. She would sit at home all day watching TV. She didn't even play with the kids and would pay our neighbor to take them to the park sometimes. I don't want to sound resentful, but I felt that way because I was working hard day and night while she wouldn't even do the bare minimum at home. It was also getting very expensive for me to pay a housekeeper to do all the cooking, cleaning, and other chores. I had to cover all the other expenses too, and I wanted to save money for our daughter's future. This was becoming almost impossible because Angela wouldn't help out in any way. After almost 6 months since our younger daughter was born, I realized we couldn't keep going like this, so I decided to talk to Angela. I knew it would be a tough conversation, so I asked my parents to watch our daughters for a day, and they agreed. That day, I sat down with Angela and told her that I understood she was tired after 2 pregnancies, but I needed her help. I explained that having a housekeeper was too expensive for us, and I needed her to start doing some of the housework again so we could lower the housekeeper's salary and save money. Angela immediately opposed the idea. She said she was too busy watching the kids to do any housework and that I should earn more money instead of blaming her for our financial problems. I tried to explain that I was already doing my best and that she needed to do her part too if we wanted to make our marriage work. I also mentioned that she wasn't really watching the kids because from what I knew, she just let them watch TV with her for hours while she watched reality shows. Once I mentioned that to Angela, I quickly realized it was a huge mistake. She got very angry and accused me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She went on a rant, saying she was done being pushed around and forced to do all the work while I did nothing but sit at a desk for a few hours every day. She blamed me for not being able to afford a housekeeper and said it was shameful that I had to beg her for help when I was supposed to be the man of the house. Her arguments made no sense, and it felt like she was just trying to justify not doing anything all day. We ended up having a massive fight. She called me a loser who couldn't afford to be with a woman like her. I called her a lazy person who had failed as a mother since our eldest daughter was scared of her, and now she was failing as a wife too. That remark really got to her, and she shoved me hard. I lost my balance, fell onto the coffee table, shattered the glass, and hurt myself. I had to be rushed to the ER, and Angela kept apologizing and crying the whole time. Fortunately, my injuries were just surface level, mostly affecting my back, but I could have been seriously hurt. After this, I realized I couldn't trust Angela anymore. I told her she had to move out because I didn't trust her around the kids. I was afraid she might lose her temper and hurt them too. I asked my parents to take care of our daughters while Angela was still there. For a week, Angela protested and promised it would never happen again. But I couldn't trust her. I almost filed for divorce, but she begged me for another chance. By the end of the week, we agreed that she would go live with her parents for a while and undergo therapy. Only after she got a clean bill of health from a medical professional would I consider letting her move back in with us. I knew something was seriously wrong because happy people don't act that way, but Angela was willing to work on it and get better. I also didn't want my daughters to grow up without their mother, so I agreed not to divorce her right away and to give our marriage another try. We also started marriage counseling while living separately. However, it all turned out to be useless because Angela ended up cheating on me. My parents moved in with me to help take care of my daughters. While Angela was living with her parents, we attended marriage counseling sessions weekly, and for a while, things seemed to be getting better. I stayed in touch with her therapist, who informed me that Angela was suffering from postpartum depression but was improving. Anger issues, which she never had before, were a symptom of this depression and had spiraled out of control when she shoved me. That incident was a wake-up call for both of us. This continued for almost a year, and around the 6-month mark, I even allowed her to visit our daughters under my supervision. She was slowly becoming her old self again, and I was relieved to see that. It finally felt like our situation was improving and we could actually make it work. But then, suddenly, she stopped coming to our counseling sessions without any explanation. She also stopped responding to me, although her therapist assured me she was still making progress. This didn't make sense to me, and for weeks I tried to talk to her, but she kept telling me she needed some time to herself. Finally, after nearly 3 months of her avoiding me, I decided to visit her at her parents' place. I hadn't visited Angela earlier because her parents didn't like me. They blamed me for her behavior, thinking I was the reason she acted out. Angela had told me that visiting her while she lived with them would only cause more drama, which we didn't need. But I broke that rule and visited them anyway because Angela had been distant and was missing counseling sessions. Even when she did show up, she seemed uninterested, and I couldn't figure out why. When I tried to talk to her in person, on the phone, or through text, she insisted everything was fine. However, her behavior suggested she was hiding something. The day I went to her parents' house, I expected her to be home, but she wasn't there. When I asked her parents where she was, they said they weren't allowed to tell me and slammed the door in my face. I could tell they were enjoying this, and I had a bad feeling. I called Angela several times while standing outside her parents' house, but she didn't answer. Growing more paranoid, I decided to sneak around the house. I went to the backyard, knowing her parents usually kept the kitchen door open. I didn't need to go that far, though, because I saw Angela sitting on a swing in the backyard, making out with a man I didn't recognize. That moment is burned into my memory as the most horrible moment of my life. The man pulled away as soon as he saw me, and by the time Angela turned around, I was already walking back to my car. She caught up with me and tried to explain, but I was in shock and couldn't hear anything she was saying. She tried to grab me, but I shook her off and told her not to touch me. Then, I got in my car and drove back home. I blocked Angela everywhere as soon as I got home, so she wouldn't have a chance to explain. I told my parents to find a lawyer for me and informed them of what I had witnessed at Angela's parents' house. I didn't see or hear from Angela until we had to meet with a court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By that point, I had become like a robot, just going through the motions for the sake of my daughters. Emotionally, I had shut down completely. I didn't feel anything when Angela decided to terminate her parental rights because she had made up her mind that she didn't want to be with us anymore. She wanted to be with the guy, let's call him Sean, that I saw her with the other day. He was her childhood friend, and although they had drifted apart after high school, they reconnected when she moved back in with her parents. She had apparently fallen in love with him. Her parents supported this, which is probably why they were okay with her cheating on me with Sean in their backyard. Despite being married with 2 kids, apparently, they always wanted her to end up with Sean. And they were happy that she was finally choosing her own happiness. The divorce process was lengthy because even though she had been cheating on me, Angela still wanted to qualify for alimony. It took a while, but my lawyer and I fought hard to make sure she didn't get anything in the divorce because I had been the one paying for everything while she did nothing but watch television at home. Finally, after 5 years, the divorce came through, and we succeeded in our goal to ensure she walked away with nothing. The months during the divorce were some of the hardest times for me, but I knew I couldn't break down because my daughters had nobody except me to look after them. My parents were incredibly helpful and supportive throughout everything, and I can never thank them enough for being there for me while I juggled work and taking care of my kids. It's been 5 years since the divorce, and although at the time it seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me, I'm actually thankful for it now. I don't think I would be where I am today if I hadn't made the decision to leave Angela. Life has treated me well since then, and I'm in a much better place now in every respect. We've moved into a bigger house because I have a better paying job now, and I don't have to spend money on anyone apart from myself and my daughters. My parents live close by and drop in from time to time, which is great. I have friends who love me, and my daughters are as happy as can be. That's all a man needs, and I'm so thankful that everything is going well for me now. Or it was until Angela showed up again a few days ago. The kids were at school, and I was just about to leave for work when I opened the door and found Angela standing outside with a young boy beside her. The boy couldn't have been older than 3 or 4 years old, and I knew he had to be Angela's son. I was taken by surprise seeing her and was still trying to process it when she started crying and said she was here to apologize and make things right with me. She told me she was finally ready to be a family again and give our marriage another chance. I couldn't believe she was back after all these years, thinking she could just decide to give our marriage another shot. In a split second, I made up my mind and decided to shut the door and turn her away. I didn't want to get involved in whatever this was. But before I closed the door, I made it clear to her that she wasn't part of this family anymore. I had stopped being her husband the day she cheated on me with Sean. The divorce was just a legal formality, and she had given up custody of our daughter, so she had no right to refer to us as her family. After I made that clear to her, I shut the door and told her to go away. I refrained from cursing her out, mostly because of the little boy with her. I could hear her crying outside my door for a couple of minutes, but I ignored it and went to work. I tried hard not to dwell on it, as it would weaken my resolve. I almost succeeded in forgetting about Angela showing up until I got a call from my parents when I came back home from work. They demanded an explanation for why I turned Angela away. Apparently, Angela had contacted them after I shut the door on her, and she was devastated. My parents had given her my new address and encouraged her to visit me since she was divorcing Sean and wanted to make things right with me. They said Angela had reached out to them about a month ago, so this had been in the works for a while. My parents believed it was about time. I was furious with my parents for making such a big decision without consulting me. They believed Angela deserved another chance and directed her to me without my consent. I scolded them for their recklessness, especially since the situation could have been much worse if the kids had been at home. Despite my anger, my parents insisted they had a right to decide what was best for the kids. They felt justified because they had helped me during the divorce and still occasionally looked after the kids. They believed Angela's return was ultimately my decision, but they wanted her back in our lives. I found it absurd that they thought they had an equal say in this matter, considering they were my daughters, not theirs. While I appreciated their support, I didn't think it was their place to invite Angela back into our lives, especially after she had signed away her parental rights. We argued about it, but my parents insisted I was being selfish for not giving Angela another chance. They claimed Angela had changed and deserved to be part of our daughters' lives. Despite reminding them of Angela's decision to give up her rights, they accused me of jeopardizing my daughters' well-being by not accepting their mother back into their lives. It's been a few days and I've been reflecting a lot on whether I was wrong or selfish for not giving my ex-wife another chance to be a mother to our daughters. About a week has passed since Angela showed up at my door with her son, and I've recently uncovered the truth about her relationship with my parents. It's deeply disturbing, and I'm still trying to process it. It turns out that not only did my parents tell Angela my new address, but they had been in contact with her all along. They believed she would come around eventually, so they stayed in touch. This betrayal stings because I had cut Angela out of my life after the divorce, but my parents hadn't. Sean had given Angela an ultimatum: either abandon her family and start a new life with him or fight for custody of her kids, risking losing him in the process. My parents said Angela contacted them shortly after I filed for divorce, seeking their help to stay in touch with her kids privately. She felt backed into a corner by both Sean and me. I was fighting for full custody with supervised visitation, while Sean wanted her to abandon her kids entirely. Given our divorce circumstances and Angela's history of temper issues, fighting for custody seemed futile. Angela knew once she signed away her rights, she wouldn't have any visitation, but my parents would, and they planned to exploit that. They successfully fooled me for years by allowing Angela to see our daughters behind my back. They did it because they sympathized with Angela's situation and couldn't bear keeping a mother away from her kids, even if it meant betraying their own son. It's heartbreaking to learn that my parents had been inviting Angela over to see our kids behind my back. They would bribe them with toys and candy to keep quiet about it. Whenever I asked my daughters about their day at their grandparents' house, they would innocently tell me they played games with their grandparents and their friend. I never suspected they were referring to their mother, as my parents had instructed them to call her their friend if I asked. When I confronted my daughters about meeting their mother secretly, they started crying and told me they were afraid of punishment from God if they told me the truth. Angela and my parents had evidently drilled it into their heads that there would be dire consequences if they spoke up. It's heartbreaking to realize how manipulated and intimidated my daughters were into keeping this secret. I also felt like a terrible father for not questioning which friends of my parents they were spending time with. It could have been anyone, even someone dangerous, and I would never have known. But now, I'm determined to put an end to this deceit. Now, because I'm getting a restraining order against all of them, I already have proof. My parents sent me an email a couple of days after our fight, thinking it would make me understand Angela's desperation to be a mother to her daughters without losing her supposed true love. But instead, it made me realize everyone was lying, and I couldn't trust anyone anymore. It's ironic that Angela had to meet our kids secretly because Sean didn't want her to have contact with her previous family. Sean, who was supposed to be her true love, is now divorcing her, and their son seems to be caught in the middle. Sean doesn't want anything to do with Angela or their child because he got a job offer in another place and is moving away soon. Angela, who recently started working again, doesn't want to move with him because their son has started kindergarten here. So they've been fighting for a long time. 3 months ago, everything reached a breaking point when Sean told Angela he was done with their relationship. He was taking a job offer at another place and moving out. He didn't want the responsibilities of being a family man anymore because it meant sacrificing his own happiness. This was supposed to make me feel sorry for Angela, but it just made me feel like justice was finally being served. I've talked to my lawyer and we filed for restraining orders against my parents and Angela. I also had a serious conversation with my daughters. I've told them they won't be seeing their grandparents or their mother anymore. They seem okay with it for now, but we're going to therapy to work through it because I know it's going to be tough for them. This situation has been difficult for the past 5 years, but it ends now. Update: thanks for all the support and concern. My parents and Angela have been served with restraining orders and have to go to court soon. I have blocked them on all platforms and told my friends not to talk to them if they reach out. I've also increased security at home and have been working from home for a few days. I informed my daughter's school about the situation. Initially, I considered keeping them home from school, but I don't want their education to suffer. Now, teachers are keeping an eye on them and won't allow anyone but me to pick them up after school. I'm doing everything I can to keep them away from us because I'm sure they'll try to reach us. So far, things have been good, and I hope they'll stay away even after we get the restraining order. Update: we got the restraining order, and for the next 5 years, those 3 won't be able to come near me or my daughters without facing serious consequences. I'm still keeping up with all the security measures because they looked really angry the last time I saw them, and I don't want to take any risks. My daughters and I are going to family counseling regularly, and I think we'll make a lot of progress in the next few months. We've already made a good amount of progress. All I want now is for my daughters to be happy, so please keep sending us your best wishes. We appreciate it.